My name is Shahzad Rizvi, and I'm going to read to you a story from India which I wrote. And the title is The Boy Who Flew, and I hope you would like it. Manoj was a 15-year-old boy who lived with his parents and two sisters in Bhopal in central India. Since he was little, he only had one wish: to fly. His father, Mr. Kumar, took him down to the local flying club and enrolled him, but he didn't enjoy it. The small plane was too confining. "It's not the same as flying yourself," he said, and quit the club. One day, his sister Sulekha found Manoj on the edge of the cliff behind their house, overlooking the lake. He had some contraptions attached to his arms. "What are you doing, standing so close to the edge?" she shouted, grabbing him to move back. "You could be killed. And what are those things on your arms?" "They are my wings. I'm going to fly," he said. "You have gone mad," she said, and dragged him inside the house. When Mr. Kumar heard about what had happened, he confined Manoj to his room. "He will stay there," said Mr. Kumar, "until he promises never to try such a dangerous thing again." But Manoj refused to promise. Mrs. Kumar watched this standoff between her husband and her favorite child with great concern. On the morning of Manoj's 16th birthday, the maid Radha pushed open the door to give Manoj his breakfast. She was so terrified by what she saw that she dropped the tray and ran out, screaming. In the bed, instead of Manoj, she saw a gigantic bird sleeping. Radha ran to the dining room, shrieking hysterically, "A ghost! A ghost!" "Don't be silly, Radha. I bet Manoj was trying his flight stunt again," said his little sister Rekha. She laughed, but her mother poked her warningly in the ribs. Mr. Kumar looked up from his newspaper and asked, "What's all the hullabaloo?" All three women tried to answer at once, so he couldn't understand a word. He got up and headed towards Manoj's room. It was fairly dark in the room, but a shaft of sunlight fell directly on Manoj, seeing his father. Manoj jumped up to greet him like a good Indian son, with his palms joined before his face. What Mr. Kumar saw was a huge bird before him, awkwardly flapping his wings over his breast. There was some resemblance of this bird to his son, but he had a beak and his body was covered with feathers. Manoj's two sisters and his mother crowded in behind Mr. Kumar to see what was going on. The girls began to laugh. Mrs. Kumar began to cry. "What have you done, my son?" After Mr. Kumar recovered from his shock, he said, This isn't funny. You have taken this flying business entirely too far. I hope you would become a pilot or join the Air Force. But burning or turning yourself into a bird is silly. Take all that stuff off your body. Take a bath and rejoin the human race," said Mr. Kumar. Mrs. Kumar came in. "I'll help you get rid of this junk. He must have glued it on. What mischief!" She grabbed a handful of feathers from his wing and tried to pull them out. Manoj cried in pain. "But Mama, I didn't glue them on. They just grew last night," said Manoj. Mrs. Kumar began to wail. "What has happened to my son? What has happened to my son?" The whole family and the servants were now gathered in Manoj's room. The girls had to stop laughing. Mr. Kumar barked at the servants, the maids, the cook, the gardener, and the chauffeur. Go about your business, close the door, and don't breathe a word about this to anybody. But this was easier said than done. As soon as they could, the servants whispered to the servants of the neighboring houses. Those servants told their employers. The employers told their friends. By evening, the news was all over the town. A big crowd grew outside the house, wanting to get a glimpse of Manoj. Children shouted. The reporters tried to get the story for their papers. Pushing and shoving turned into a near riot, and the governor imposed a curfew on the city. In the meantime, the Kumars were in turmoil. Mrs. Kumar wept harder than ever, and her daughters couldn't calm her. Mr. Kumar was afraid what was going to happen, as well as worried about his son. Sure enough, Mr. Kumar's boss called and demanded, "Do you realize what your son has done? His little prank has caused havoc all over the city. I'm ordering his arrest, and you are suspended." Manoj was also in turmoil. At first he had been elated that he had changed into a bird. I can fly. Finally experience what it's like to fly. But when he saw what was happening to his family, he couldn't bear it. He closed his eyes and tried with all his might to change back into his old self. But when he opened his eyes, he was still a bird. He tried to break off his wings by banging them against the door, but that didn't work any more than it would work to try to break off your legs. And it hurt. The wings were now part of his body. He had actually become a giant bird. Outside, boys were cheering, "Bird boy, come outside! Bird boy, come outside!" Manoj's father cried out, "I've lost my face. My good name is sullied. My only son turned into a bird, and now my job is in danger. I don't know what to do." "Stop. Everyone stop," Manoj shouted. "I relieve you of your misery," he said. He went outside. People gasped when they saw him. "I know you have come to see me, so here I am. I had no idea things would turn out this way. I have always wanted to fly, but I have no idea how this happened. I guess I wanted to be a bird more than I wanted to be a man," said Manoj. All the reporters and photographers listened intently. "I didn't know my wish to fly would bring so much harm and unhappiness. It's time for me to leave here and live my life as a bird." Reporters clamored to ask him questions. All they got in response was rush of wings. The giant bird lifted off the ground and flew away. "Where do you plan to live now?" someone shouted after him. But it was too late. The bird soared up out of sight. The crowd began to disperse. Meanwhile, Manoj flew and flew. For miles below him, he could see houses, roads, and rivers until it grew too dark. Manoj was exhausted, but he wanted to land where people couldn't see him. He had already created enough excitement for a lifetime. He saw a mountain ahead. Perfect, he thought. Away from the eyes of the people. The perfect place to spend the night. It was the first time he had tried to land. It was scary and tricky at first. and he almost missed the ledge, but finally, I am safe, he thought. As soon as he got settled, an angry bird flew at him, squawking and trying to peck out his eyes. The bird was smaller than him, but very angry. It was an eagle, and Manoj was intruding on its nest. Though Manoj was bigger, and his wings and beak could wound, even kill the eagle, he was in no mood to fight. He would go somewhere else to spend the night. He flew down and found a place in the thick forest under a tree. Soon he was asleep, but not for long. He woke to find himself surrounded by hyenas nuzzling his chest and belly, trying to figure out what he was and how to eat him. He opened his beak, not sure what would come out. The screech that came from him scared the carnivores, and they ran away. That was a relief, but still, where to spend the night? He was unequipped for this jungle life. He looked up and saw a large tree towering over him. It had large, strong branches and good leaf cover. I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, but spend the night perched in trees, he thought to himself. He flew up and landed on a big, strong branch. Sweet sleep soon overtook him. He dreamed that he was being strangled by a thick rope, getting tighter and tighter, cramping his chest. He opened his eyes. He felt groggy. It was no longer dark. The pressure around him was getting tighter by the second, and now he was having difficulty breathing. He realized that a python had coiled itself around him. I must think quickly, he thought, or I will be dead. A knife. If I only had a knife, I could cut off the python's head. What can I do with no knife and no hands? He suddenly realized that he has something better than a knife, his scimitar talons. He quickly exhaled and created just enough slack to bring up his claw and catch it on the snake's body. With all his strength, he slashed down with his razor-sharp talon. The python's head was nearly severed. The tightening stopped. The snake began to unwrap itself from around him and fell crashing through the branches to the ground below. What was that? Came a male voice from below the tree. Manoj couldn't see who was speaking, but he was overwhelmed with the relief to hear a human voice after all he had been through. Hello? Manoj shouted. Who is up there? The voice asked. Did you just kill that python? Yes, it is just me, Manoj. What are you doing up there? And who are you? That is a long story, sir, Manoj answered. I've got all the time in the world. Sitting on the branch, Manoj told his companion below how he had come to be changed into a bird and all the troubles he had had. Suddenly there was a hoot of laughter. The voice said, You think your story is outlandish. Wait till you hear mine. He told Manoj how he had grown up as an orphan on the streets, dreaming of living away from people, roaming in the forest and being able to live in nature, like a deer. Then one morning, he woke up and found himself changed into a deer. There had been no uproar, since he had no parents and no one to look after. No one noticed one less street urchin. As soon as it became clear to him what had happened, that he was not dreaming and that he wasn't going to change back, he bounded into the woods and kept going until he was deep into the forest. Now I'm living in a cave not far from here. Would you like to come down so we can get acquainted? Manoj flew down from the tree and bowed his head in greeting to his new friend, a magnificent antlered deer. Join me in the cave if you like. It's comfortable and seems safe. I've never been troubled by hyenas or snakes, said the deer man. Manoj accepted the offer. Now, since that day, the birdman and the deer man have been living happily together. No one has seen their cave or knows exactly where to look for it. But the two friends are happier undisturbed. They even prefer it when people doubt that there ever really was a bird boy. This way, they are left alone. Manoj to fly and his friend to live a free life in the forest as a deer. Thank you.